Hi, I'm Joel Gilgard with Gilgard Analytics. Thank you for tuning in to this YouTube video clip, this is part two of a summary of economic and financial events during 2022. And we're going to start off with the 13 top world events from 2022. First one is Russia invades Ukraine. Second is Iranian civilian protest against the Islamic regime takes place in Iran. Inflation grows rapidly worldwide. Many central banks raise interest rates aggressively. Climate change increases with record heat waves, monsoons, droughts, etc. China abruptly lifts all COVID restrictions in December. Now, I have to admit, I was more impressed with China before COVID. COVID has completely demonstrated that China is not ready for central leadership roles from a global perspective. I'm not sure why they were so adamant about suppressing their population for so long. World population surpasses 8 billion for the first time on record. More Americans are smoking marijuana than cigarettes. This is going to be just great. Scientists identify bacteria big enough to be seen with the naked eye. European heat waves from July to August caused at least 5,000 deaths and several major wildfires. And this, unfortunately, is just the beginning. UK had 3 prime ministers and 2 monarchs this year, sounding more like Italy. More far right wing parties gain in Europe, including Sweden, Italy, France, and Spain. NASA's DART crashes into an asteroid for the first test of potentially planetary defense. And so the planetary defense is to blow up this asteroid before it hits the Earth. Cryptocurrency exchange, FTX, collapses and the cryptocurrency markets fall, with Bitcoin having sunk approximately 75% since its all-time high in November 2021. So as with most things, medicine, electronics, any kind of device, investments, right? Houses that you buy, wait until it's been around for at least 34 years, right? And now you can see how it does, right? So from a housing perspective, has it turned into a slum? Are the houses standing strong without being too crooked, right? There's no water flowing underneath. And that's the same thing with companies, right? The older companies, if you look at the Dow Jones Industrial Average, my guess is their average is probably at least 75 years. It used to be higher. I know they've updated it. Okay, next topic is going to be a summary chart of different events that took place. And so we've covered this somewhat, but I wanted to just give you a little better indicator here of what it looked like. So we're going to start with 34-year key indicators, and so and these are cycle values. And I'm going to make this just a little bit bigger so it's easier for you to see here. It's very difficult because of the screen, but anything that is positive means that the value, basically the current value for 2022 is below its 34-year average. And if you see a negative value here, like the 10-year government yield, basically the yield is below its 34-year average, and that's why it's negative. Government bonds, the yield works in the opposite direction. Likewise, the CRB, the Chicago Research Bureau for Commodities, or Commodities Research Bureau, is below its average for the past 34 years. So there's some value there. But if you look at oil, coal, Minneapolis REIT, U.S. REIT, farmland, silver, gold, lumber, utility average, industrial average, are way overvalued, right? Gold and silver stocks, they're still below their average. An agricultural index, they're about fairly valued. Looking at the world stock markets, and so this is from my 34-year perspective. there are very few that have, Austria, Belgium, Hong Kong, Italy, Japan, Malaysia, South Korea, Spain, and the UK. They have some value. Basically, what we mean by that is that the current price, as of the end of 2022, the stocks were priced below their 34-year average price. And this is from, Gilgard inflation adjusted perspective. And then you had countries like Turkey, Singapore. They were pretty much fairly valued. And, Australia, Canada, France, Germany, India, they are currently selling at above their 34-year average, with India way above its average. Indonesia, Ireland also above average. Netherlands, New Zealand, South Africa, Sweden, Switzerland, also an outlier. Taiwan, Thailand, and the U.S. They've been perennially above their 34-year average. And so currencies, it's very difficult to unless you had a real, advanced graph where you could compare a currency vis-a-vis all the other ones. But this is, again, we're just looking at this from one perspective. This is currencies compared to the US dollar. And so from that perspective, the Swiss franc has done the best over this past period. And I believe either the Singaporean dollar or the US dollar has done second or third best. And Turkey, takes the price for just decimating its currency over the past generation, under Erdogan. South Africa, they haven't done a bad job either. Indonesia and India, perennial underperformers, right? So just gives you an understanding, right? You can pretty much tell with this chart here what a country is all about. This is bureaucracy, government, basically obstructing business. South Africa too, Indonesia, India, right? Relatively corrupt countries. Whereas Switzerland, the US, Singapore, New Zealand, Taiwan, right? It used to be Hong Kong. I don't think this is going to look like this for much longer. Relatively favorable for businesses. And then you have these European communities here, Canada, Ireland, Italy, Malaysia, Netherlands, South Korea, Spain, etc., Taiwan, Thailand, UK. They're kind of in between government and business. And then you have like countries like Sweden, that tend to be a little more socialistic, a little bit more bureaucratic than other countries. Looking at summary of bonds, and these are international bonds, and so we have yield curve spreads, and this is what we're talking about right now. The U.S., UK, Sweden, Germany, Canada, they're experiencing negative yield curves spreads, and yield curve ratios. Japan is the only one in the negative. But right now, where you see a country having problems, right, is anytime the yield curve ratio is above 4, that means that the underlying economy is doing very poorly. It's not a regular recession, but it means that the industries that the countries are in are outdated. The country needs to go through a paradigm shift to refocus its efforts. And the big story, U.S., Canada, their interest rates rose enormously over this past year. You still have Japan, which had a negative 3-month bill at the end of 2022. That's probably going to change. And you can see here, Italy, Australia, and the U.S., they had the highest interest rate. I don't really count South Africa. They're on an island all by themselves. Next, we're going to look at agricultural commodities. And so again, this is from a cyclical valuation perspective. The only commodity, agricultural commodity, that's valued above its 34-year history is corn. Soybeans is way below its average. Not sure why. Industrial metals, copper, iron ore, steel, zinc, they're valued above their historical average. Aluminum is valued below. And so here we have key forecasting indicators. And the way to look at this is, so for example, military spending is how much, how much from a historical average more could the government be spending on the military spending? Turns out not very much. So there's not much extra oomph that they could contribute to the economy with military spending. Military spending is currently at its upper limits. And U.S. federal debt is also quickly getting there, meaning that there's not much more positive input there that the U.S. federal debt can increase, because increasing federal debt, the short term is very, very good for the economy, but from a long-term perspective, it's very, very bad. It's Hemingway-esque, right? At first they went bankrupt slowly, and then all of a sudden they went completely bankrupt, right? U.S. unemployment, currently there is nothing to give there, right? This is going in the opposite direction, and that's what Powell is working on, right? Is to get the unemployment rate down. Now, a very positive aspect of the current U.S. Economy is new vehicle sales, which is at a generational low. So there's very much room there for improvement, and I think the Biden administration is probably going to get together with the auto manufacturers and come up with a new clunkers program, right? So, this was George Bush during the 2008, or maybe it was Barack Obama, I can't quite remember, Cash for Clunkers. So there will be for diesel and gasoline engines, to basically trade them in for electric vehicles. There'll be a similar program coming up within the next year or so. Likewise, new housing sales. We're not going to see much, even though house prices are very expensive and the mortgage rates are very high. We're not going to see much negative activity from housing sales, just because there's been so little residential construction done during the past 15 years or so. Dow Jones Industrial over GDP, we're also there at a negative, right? GDP has to grow quite a bit, and then Dow Jones Industrial has to go down before that becomes a more positive factor for the world economy. Likewise, with the Gilgard Unemployment Index, the world is fairly richly employed right now, and the Gilgard yield curve spread, that one too is basically positive, right? So we don't have much umph there. Once that one goes negative, we will probably see anytime the governments around the world can lower their interest rates, it's a positive, right? But because unemployment is so low around the world, for 2023, governments, they're going to tighten, they're going to increase their short-term rates, and the yield curve spread is going to go negative. And so here's just a quick summary, the different countries around the world, how they're doing. You have China now, even though unemployment is, relatively tiny, or, the unemployment rate is small from a racial perspective, but from a Chinese historical perspective, it's out of control, right? So you have Austria, you have Brazil, Chile, China, Pakistan, South Africa, Taiwan, Turkey. These are all countries that are grappling with unemployment situations. And then on the flip side, you have countries like the Czech Republic, you have Germany, New Zealand, the United Kingdom, the US. They're having the exact opposite, right? Unemployment is very, very low, and so from their economic perspective, unemployment is most likely going to go up from here. And then we have the last graph, and these are from emerging stock markets. And again, basically, for whatever reason, Gilrad Analytics, they only have 21 years of tradable data for these markets. And so they're categorized differently than those with 34 years, right? So we can't really compare them with each other. So you have Chile, you have Greece, you have Poland, Pakistan, Czech, Hungary, Colombia, Russia, which are trading below their 34-year, or in this case, their 21-year history. And so obviously the more positive the number is, the more they're trading below their average, right? And then you have Israel, Denmark, Norway, Argentina, Peru, Philippines, they're trading above. And you have countries like Denmark and Norway and Israel, they're really angling for a mangling. Let's see here, what else do we have? Apologize, it's taking a while to open up this big file here. Here we have the never mind, we covered these elsewhere. I think this summarizes everything from 2022. So I appreciate you tuning in to this YouTube video clip. If you have any comments, if you have any questions, suggestions, please let us know. Thank you so much.